We're launching a series called Oceans of Grace. Oceans of Grace. Over the next several weeks, we are going to explore together a book of the Bible called Jonah. It is named for the prophet who is its central character. Now, I don't know if you would classify Jonah as a hero or an anti-hero. I suppose I'll let you make up your own mind on that as we explore his story together. But categories aside, what I do know is this: Jonah is relatable. He's relatable. There's so much that we can learn from and benefit from in his experience. Now, for many of us, maybe for you, it's a familiar story. Maybe you heard his story in kids' church or in VBS. Maybe you colored a picture, made a craft, sang a song. Maybe ate some goldfish crackers along with the lesson. It seems like we always do goldfish crackers with Jonah. It seems to be fitting. And if I had to guess, the version that you learned probably followed a somewhat predictable pattern. And to test that hypothesis, I want you all to finish this statement. Y'all ready? Jonah and the... Yeah, there it is. There it is. I was texting with our elder team last week about where I was thinking of going next after we wrapped up our vision series. And Scott texted me back. He said, sounds like we're going to hear a big fish story. And Joe responded back after that, don't be exaggerating how big it was. Now, see, I would just say to that, I'm not the only one that tells bad jokes around here. Okay? In fact, it's a qualification to be on our elder team. You got to tell bad jokes. That was a bad joke, in case you missed it. Jonah and the whale. Jonah and the whale. This profound and powerful narrative about the human condition and about God's heart has been reduced to a caricature. But here's the thing, church. There is so much more to the story than that. There's so much more to the story. Unfortunately, the retelling is often focused on this single part that really isn't even the point. We get stuck on this one thing. So for the next month or so, we're going to revisit this tale to discover what it holds for us. And let me just tell you right now up front, it holds a lot for us. I invite you to open a Bible or Bible app and meet me there. Jonah's book is located in the first half of the Bible, what's called the Old Testament. And when you find it, you can bookmark it for easy reference in the coming weeks. We're going to be coming back to it. And here at the outset of this series, I encourage you in your quiet time, your devotional time, to read this book through in its entirety. We're not going to do that together just for the sake of time. But it's totally doable. It's only 4 chapters long, and I'm confident that will be time well spent for you. Okay? If you want to dig deeper, for those of you who want to go even deeper into the historical and cultural backdrop of the book, again, there's a lot here. There's a very insightful commentary written by a guy named James Bruckner. I've used it in my studies. I'll include that in my sermon notes if you're interested. It all starts when God speaks. How many of you know that when God speaks, it's the beginning of something? It's the beginning of something. God speaks and he tells Jonah, get up and go to the city of Nineveh. I want you to warn them that their judgment day is coming. Now Jonah hears this loud and clear. But he does not like what it is that he hears. Y'all know anything about that? God, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not so sure about it. I have some other inclinations. I have some other feelings on this matter. Jonah has his own ideas, so he runs. He hurries off to find a merchant ship headed for the distant city of Tarshish. And then he buys himself a one-way ticket and climbs aboard. The ship leaves port, but out at sea, a violent storm blows in, and amidst the howling wind, the crashing waves, it seems that this ship is going to be broken into pieces. The crew starts to panic. They start calling out to all their gods to save them. How many of you know that it's serious when people get religious? Jesus, save us. It's serious business. It doesn't work. So they began throwing cargo overboard in a desperate attempt to stay afloat, but that doesn't help either. Meanwhile, Jonah is below deck, taking a nap. The captain finds him there and shakes him awake. What are you doing? Now just go off script a little bit. I have to wonder that maybe the precise language used at this point was a little bit more salty. Because after all, this guy's a sailor, right? What are you doing? Get up, pray to whatever God it is that you worship. Maybe he will save us. Because the rest of them aren't doing it. As the storm rages on, the sailors look for somebody to blame. They cast lots, and the lot falls to Jonah. Now, I wonder if we can just imagine this scene. Maybe some of you have been out to sea before. No land in sight, presumably. There's enormous waves, the wind's howling, the rain's pelting, and they are shouting over the noise. Who are you? Where are you from? Why are you here? Jonah's backed into a corner and he fesses up. I'm a Hebrew. And I worship the one true God. I worship the one who created all of this. And if they're even more terrified than they were before. What have you done? Why is this happening? More to the point, how do we stop it? Jonah replies, this is all my fault. Throw me overboard and you will be saved. Now, they're hesitant to send a stranger to a watery grave. And so instead they make for shore. They row, but it's no use. The wind and the waves, they're too strong. And left with no other options, they cry out to God, please don't hold us responsible for this man's life. We've tried. There's nothing more we can do. It's clear that you want it this way. And with that, they give Jonah the old heave-ho. The storm that was so violent just a moment before subsides. And the crew is overwhelmed by the power of God, and they offer him their worship. Meanwhile, Jonah sinks down into the deep. That is a bit of an imaginative retelling of the book's opening. Let's unpack it a bit. Starting with the destination. Jonah chapter 1. Beginning there at verse 1. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it because its wickedness has come up before me. Church, can I tell you that when our hearts are grieved by a world gone wrong, we need to know that God's heart is grieved too. When we look around and we see injustice and evil and violence and all of these things that we know are not the way they're supposed to be, God sees that. God sees that. And there's a day coming when he will take care of it. Go to the city. Jonah, I want you to warn them. Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. So the city of Nineveh was part of an ancient empire called Assyria. And a little bit of background is essential to understanding the story here. Assyria and God's people, Jonah's people, the people of Israel, they're not on the best of terms. Okay? They don't get along. They're rivals. They hate each other. They fight all the time. In fact, just a few decades after this, Assyria will invade and destroy Israel. take its people captive into exile. All that is to say, there's no love lost here. There is no love lost. To make matters worse, scholars tell us that Assyria was notorious for its state-sponsored terror. So archaeological digs have found that Assyrians took great pride in their cruelty. They used carvings of torture for interior decorating. Just imagine that. And going to the store, home furnishing store. What a lovely depiction of bloodshed and death. I think that'll go nicely with my curtains. Right? That's what we're talking about here. Like if Hollywood were to make a movie about this empire, it would be at least rated R for graphic violence. They cut up people, they skinned people alive for sport. They're bloodthirsty, they enjoy inflicting pain. And it's to them that God sends Jonah. Now we might wonder, we might be inclined to ask the question, as Jonah surely did, why warn them, God? Why not just drop the hammer? The world will be better off for it. Don't give them a second chance. Just do it. Pull the trigger. Be rid of them. We'll unpack that issue a bit later in the series, but for now, suffice it to say that Jonah refuses to go. And he sets sail for this place called Tarshish. Scholars have placed Tarshish in what is now Spain. And they note that Tarshish was believed to be the furthest point west that you could go on the map. So let me translate that for you. Jonah is literally running to the ends of the earth to escape God's call on his life. Now the language here is really interesting. It isn't so easy to see it in the English translations that we read. But in the Hebrew, there's a repetition, there's a pattern. There's this word, yarad. It's repeated, and it literally translates as going down. Jonah goes down to the port in Joppa. Jonah goes down into the ship. Jonah goes down below the deck to sleep. It's this picture repeated of descent, of sinking lower and lower as he runs further and further from God. Now this is really significant because what is God's call to Jonah? Get up and go. Get up and go, Jonah. Instead, he's going down. And that brings us to a big question that we need to answer. Church, here it is. What's your direction in life? Where are you headed? What's your trajectory? Are you running from God or are you running for God? Are you on mission? Or like Jonah, are you making a break for it? God, I've got my own ideas. And they're pretty good ones, if I may say so myself. Friend, can I tell you that when you run from God, when you run from his plans for you, you're going in the wrong direction and the direction is down. You're not going to find life there. You're not going to find fulfillment or happiness or joy or peace or whatever it is you're looking for. You're not going to find it there. It doesn't lead anywhere good. You're trying to escape the one thing that makes everything else make sense. You're headed for chaos and confusion. But even so, I want to show you this. Have a look at verse 4. Jonah chapter 1, verse 4. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea. Such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. Did you catch that? Who sent the storm? See, here's what I think. I think sometimes in life, we're quick to assume that what happens to us is random or chaotic or without purpose. Or we can also assume maybe I created the storm. And sometimes there's truth in those statements. But we might be missing something. Maybe God's the one that sent the storm. Stay with me. God is in the storm, church. This storm was a mercy. It was a mercy. And I know that's not how we typically read the book of Jonah. We think this is punishment. It's a mercy. And that sounds strange to our ears because we usually think of storms as a bad thing. But consider this. What's the purpose? Why did God send it? Isn't it to get Jonah where he's supposed to be? It's to turn Jonah around. I've got somewhere for you to be, Jonah. This isn't it. In which case, the storm is proof that God did not give up on him. Y'all, how easy would it have been for God to say, all right, Jonah, you're not doing what I want. Go your way. Fine, you want to live in the storm, Jonah? Go ahead. Have fun in the fish. I'll send another prophet. God doesn't do that. God did not give up on Jonah. Even when he tried to run away, God was still there. I need you to hear this good news, church. You cannot outrun God. For some of us, it's not for lack of trying. You ever been there? You can't outrun him. Just like Jonah, we could go to the ends of the earth, literally or metaphorically, and we can still find God waiting for us there. To use a theological term here, he is omnipresent. He's omnipresent. He's everywhere. The psalmist says this so well. He says, where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you're there. If I make my bed in the depths, we're getting to that part. You're there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, that sounds a lot like Jonah, doesn't it? You're there. Even there, your hand will guide me, your right hand will hold me fast. Maybe, church, maybe we need to start seeing the storms in life differently. Maybe we need to see them differently. Maybe when they come, and they will come, we need to ask the question, God, what are you teaching me? What do you have for me here? What are you aiming to accomplish right here in this? I have a suspicion that some of y'all need to hear this today. Maybe your storm is a mercy. Maybe it's a mercy. Maybe it's proof that God hasn't given up on you, friend. Maybe it's proof that God loves you. Maybe it's proof that he has a plan and a purpose for your life. Don't waste it. The wind and the waves, don't waste them. Let's keep going here. Here's another question for us to ponder. Who are you taking with you? Who are you taking with you? See, Jonah wasn't the only one who was affected by his choices. He took some other people into the storm with him, namely the crew, the sailors. For better or worse, others are impacted by our decisions, our direction. Our lives, they're so interconnected. They're not isolated, which means that what we do, what we don't do, inevitably, good or bad, will affect those around us. We bring others with us. Two questions. Number one, who are you bringing with you? And number two, where are you taking them? Where are you taking them? Here's the truth, church. God has given us the power of choice. Every one of us has that capacity. We get to choose, just like Jonah. We choose what our impact will be. We choose. Will you choose destruction? Or will you choose blessing? One more point of application for us here. We'll land with this one. How real is your faith? How real is your faith? So when the sailors find out that Jonah is responsible, you're the culprit, Jonah. You're the one who brought this down on us. You're the reason that we're fearing for our lives. We may never get back to shore. You're the guy. What do? They try to save his life. How many of you, that would be your first inkling? Nope, I'm going straight for overboard. They try to save his life. Just take a moment with that. Jonah tells them, throw me overboard. You'll be fine. This will all end. It will go away. And instead they try to row back to shore. Now contrast that with Jonah's attitude. His apparent lack of concern for them. His apparent lack of concern for the Assyrians that he was sent to warn prior to this little detour. Jonah doesn't care. Then there's the fact that the sailors acknowledge that God is ultimately in control. They bow in worship. God, we were wrong. We were worshiping all these false gods, these idols. We were wrong. Now we're going to worship you. Jonah claims to do that. He claims to worship God, but running away, he denies that God knows what he's doing. God, I don't trust you know what you're doing. I don't trust that you can handle this situation. Again, the sailors worship God. Jonah claims to do this, but he doesn't do a very convincing job of it. These pagan, idol-worshiping sailors act in a way that puts Jonah to shame. Can you see the irony in this? The irony that they demonstrate more conscience, more compassion than a prophet of God. That they show love and reverence that's genuine. Jonah's just making empty claims. Here's the point I'm getting at, church. The takeaway for us: no one should outlove us. I'll say that again. No one should outlove us. Nobody. Like no one should do this better than we do as representatives of Jesus. As his followers, our faith should lead us to move in a way that's tangible and real, to set the tone, to set the standard, to start the trend, to raise the bar. See, the story of Jonah, it's not about a whale. It's about God calling his people out. And he says to them, he says to us, I dare you to live out your faith. I dare you to live out what you say you believe. I dare you to put this on full display for the world to see. I dare you to be a proof that they need. I dare you to show them who I am. Get up and go, Jonah. Get up and go. They need to hear it. They need to see it. I'm sending you. The world's watching, church. The world's watching. There's no question about that. But there is a question remaining to be answered, and it's this: what will they see? What will they see in us? Today, God calls us to stop running away and to start running too. He calls us to be his voice. Get up and go. It's our move. It's our move. What direction will we choose?